Hello, everyone. I am Terry, the voice with the Pulse Talk Show, and we are here. This is episode 2 of the season, and we are still excited. We're still pumped for this season. We have some phenomenal episodes coming ahead, but on today, I'm sitting here with not only a pastor, not only an entrepreneur, not only a husband, not only a father, but I consider him a brother, a very close friend of mine, Mr. Steve Salster. And listen, this guy, when I say we go back, way back. So y'all got to forgive us when I address this man as Steve, okay? Because that's what we go back to. That's how we relate. Before we begin, we'll go ahead and put the filler out there. We're sitting here, we're close, we're buddies, and as you can see, we do not have masks on. And the reason is that because we talked about it. He's already experienced the COVID-19. I've already experienced it as well in my household. And obviously we feel that we're good, with our jobs and everything that we do. We've been safe, we've been secure. So we shook and agreed on that we will not wear masks today. So we wanted to put that filler out there. Yes, so now let's get right into it, man. So we know what you do. I know what you do. Now let's fill them in. Just give them just a little small snippet, an elevator speech of who you are.
Well, first let me say thank you. Thank you for having me on the show.
No problem.
I appreciate the invite. I'm honored to be a part of what you're doing. I believe in it. And when the book is written about it, I can say that I was a part of the Post Talk Show.
There it is.
And I'm always supportive of everything you do. And I also wanted to shout out, I got my brother a gift. He brought me on his show. I wanted to make sure that I got him a gift. And so I'm gonna give this to you. And I want you to rep it with everything you got.
When y'all see me out there,
there it is.
Y'all already know. When
y'all
see me out there, because I am redeemed with everything that I've been through. Well, listen, I am redeemed for sure.
Yes, sir.
So you got your merch, man. What is it else? What all you got?
So I'm a pastor, and I'm a husband. I'm a father. I'm a community activist. I'm a teacher. I'm a trainer. I'm a mentor. Just to sum it all up, the Lord really kind of spoke to me years ago and gave me an understanding of my life's purpose. The truth is, it's one thing to celebrate the day you were born.
Yeah.
It's something different when you finally realize why you were born. And the Lord spoke to me and helped me to realize that I was really born for the benefit of other people. And so in spite of everything that I am as it relates to title, I'm simply just a servant. I'm here for the benefit of others. And my life and my experiences are, I'm an open book. I'm a letter to be read by all of the people that are watching.
That's good. So let's take it back before we dive into the book. Younger years in your life.
Yes, sir.
We go back, like two flats on the Cadillac.
Yes, sir.
And I'll say when I first met this guy, we were preteens actually.
I think we was younger than that. We was younger than that.
We probably,
I might have been
10
or 11 years old or something like that.
We was both around in that same age, 10, 11 years old, somewhere around in there. We both, I'll say this, God placed us in a right moment at a right time to be a part of a motivational group called BSI, Black Brothers Involvement, Black Sisters Involvement. And under the leadership of Marlon Shackelford.
Shout out to Shacky D.
Shacky D and Alfred Coach Powell as well.
Yes, sir.
Those guys really molded us to who we are now.
Exactly.
So let's dig back into that time of the motivational skits and all the things we got to do growing up. How do you think that helped make you the man that you are today?
Well, that was a pivotal moment in my life. Because I was obviously a fatherless son. I was a young man who was really lost and just trying to find his way. I had no real direction. I had no real purpose. So my life wasn't driven. Yeah. And like I've always said, before and behind Shaq, along with Coach Powell, before and behind him, I've always said they saved my life. Shaq pulled me in and got me involved in something that was about self-empowerment, self-development, pride in self-worth. And I started to, embrace that reality. And it changed the way that I saw the world. Because I wasn't because I wasn't closely monitored from a father's perspective, some of what I learned almost pushed me to becoming even more angry. And I tell people this, information without guidance can be dangerous. When I started to learn about, myself and my ancestors and my pride and where we come from, and then how we were treated, how we were oppressed, and the things that our parents and grandparents and even beyond had to deal with, it caused me to develop some anger issues to go along with the other issues I already had. But Shaq, BBI, that community of brothers, that community of sisters, like-minded, all talented, passionate people, it truly served as like a bubble of safety.
And you said one good word there, the talent part. And that's where a lot of people don't understand that the talent that God gave us literally saved our life.
Right.
So where we were able to use our singing ability, our rapping ability, our acting ability to not only take us out of the streets, but we got to travel the world.
Right.
So one of the things that I can always hold on to and knowing is that when we used to go compete every year in competitions, and that we were able to sit back one day and watch the movie Sister Act. Right. And a lot of people don't notice that this little small group out of Dayton, Ohio was competing in that competition. Right. And on that year that Sister Act was made, Shaq decided, as being the president of Black Brothers Involvement, Black Sisters Involvement, that he was going to pull us out. Because of our behaviors that we were doing outside of the group. And he took us out, and not only did they use a group that came in to win, they actually use a snippet of what we were going to do and what we did the year before. And when you can look at that and say, wow, that could have been us.
Right.
Those are the type of things that we can look back on our life and say, yeah, we've been through this. We've been through that. But God. Yeah. Because if it wasn't for the talents he gave us, we would have been on TV in a different way.
Right. Whether
that was going to jail, whether that was dead. Right. Like that could have easily been us.
And was us. Some of us at times, including myself.
Yeah. But then, like I said, but God. Right. Because the mess we got in is not that God didn't keep us.
Right.
We decided to stray.
Yeah, we
decided to stray because of a lot of the angers that was built up in us. So now that word anger came from the fatherless son.
Right.
So because you were unfathered and you had good people around you.
Right.
And that's what people fail to understand sometimes. It's not saying that you don't have anyone.
Right.
It's that you were so broken by being fatherless, sometimes you neglected the good that was there.
Yeah, we lived through grief. We lived through our grief, and people grieve different. And it takes people, some people it takes time for people to heal properly. And some people never heal properly because they don't process things properly. It's about perspective. A couple of things you said kind of really sparked something in me. When it comes to, where we could have been and what we could have did, with the rap and then the singing and the dance and then the acting and all that we were doing, I tell people all the time, sometimes the best thing that happened to you is what didn't happen for you, because you can get what's for you too soon. Yeah. And when I think about how fragile I was as a young boy, as a young man, the last thing I needed was limelight. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't ready at all. And then secondly, what I'll say in defense of Shaq and Coach Pal and all of the mentors that have added value to my life and yours and many others, including my family. I don't come from a bad family. My mama's side of the family, they didn't approve of a lot of the stuff I was doing. The guys around me, like Shaq, he'd have punched me in my chest immediately if he'd have knew some of the stuff I was doing. But what I don't want to leave out of the conversation is they all planted seeds. And even though they didn't get to see the fruit of that seed immediately, now when they look at us as men, as fathers ourselves, as husbands and as active community leaders. Now they can see the fruit from the seed they sown way back then.
Yeah,
you know.
And Shaq say it all the time, how he's so proud of us, of where we are and what we're doing. And the thing that I take from it is that not that I'm clapping about where I am.
Right.
I'm clapping about where I came from.
Yeah.
And I think that's what Shaq sees.
Exactly.
He's not really so much worried about our accomplishments, but it's almost more of a joy to say, I remember when T was doing this. I remember when Steve was doing that.
Right.
But now look.
Right.
And just what comes with that is the fact that, you know, the accomplishments, the accolades, the different things of that nature. So let's dive right into this book. Give us the release dates first.
Yes, sir.
Give them the release date and how they can start partaking, and then we were going to go ahead and dive in.
I'm excited. Let me say this because I can forget.
Yeah,
Let me say this because
way.
you said something that matters, because I believe you truly captured the narrative of this book. It's not about celebrating where you are, and it's not about feeling sorry for yourself because of where you came from. This is a story of rejection and redemption, you know? And so I am celebrating today, and this book captures that joy and that appreciation for life and the celebration of the victory and obstacles that I've overcame, not because of where I am today, but because of where I've come from. Yeah. You know, where I am today only serves as a reminder to my past that was then, but it ain't now, you know. And if I can speak to any and everybody that's willing to listen to me right now, I want you to know that your now ain't forever. It does not matter what you're going through right now, what your circumstance is right now, how far deep in the valley you might be right now. As long as you're alive, I preached a sermon years ago, I think in New York, if you can look up, you can get up. And so no matter how bad you've been beaten in the moment, if you can look up, as long as you open your eyes that next day, you can get up and do something different.
And I think a lot of that speaks to the nature of the person. Where, and I tell people all the time, it's in you.
Right.
It's in you. Like, to fight, it's in you.
Right.
To conquer, it's in you.
Yes, sir.
To be great, it's in you.
In us.
But you have to want to fight. You got to want to dig your way out.
Right.
You got to want to get to the next day.
Right.
And a lot of times people are still walking around, but mentally and emotionally, they're still laying in the bed.
Yeah. It's in this book, this conversation is about process. Like you said, it's in you, you know, but process is required to bring it out. You know, we both consider ourselves to be faithful Christians. We read the Bible. We understand the agricultural history of the scripture. And, you know, one of the mainstays in the Christian narrative is the oil. The oil comes from olives. The olives were extremely valuable for that culture. But the olives were not valuable because of how they looked, because of how pretty they were.
Not at all.
What made the olives valuable was that they were crushable. Because the oil don't come out until they get crushed. And that's how we are.
And that's how we are. And it amazes me how what we've been through and how that, and people say it to me all the time, and it was only recent where I thought about it.
Right.
People say, man, where you came from, look at you. Man, I never would have thought. And they go for it. Somebody will read the book that I wrote, and they was like, man, how did you make it out of that?
And I need to interview you about that book.
It's coming. It's coming. So stay tuned for that.
Yes, sir.
Right back in the same spot. And I thought about it one day and said, I literally had to be crushed in order to prosper.
Yes, sir.
In order to push forward. Because if I would never have been crushed, I would have settled for where I was.
Right.
I would have settled in that moment.
Right.
And I think about like my Stivers days and, oh, he can play basketball. Oh, he can run track. And that's not who I am.
Right.
That's just a part of something
can do.
I can do. But that's not who I am as a person.
Right.
And if you get caught up in that, what you think, because people applauded you for it, don't get caught up in what people applaud you for. Because that's where I was. I was there for years. And it took for me to get crushed and we're gonna get there. It took for me to get crushed of let's say it, years of manipulation, years of cheating, years of backstabbing, years of not doing what a man's supposed to do, to finally get crushed to say, that's not who I am.
Right.
And that oil finally was able to come out. And because of that, we are who we are today.
Right.
And it's not where we need the accolades. We don't need the applause, but I'm applauding myself because I could have gave up.
Right.
And that's where we are. And I think that's why I wrote my book. And that's why you wrote your book.
Yes, sir.
Because like you said, that redemption, because you were rejected.
Right.
So A Fatherless Son, release date.
The release date, January 9th.
January 9th.
2021.
So listen.
On my birthday.
Listen, so
January 9th.
So New Year's Eve, first give thanks to God that you made it.
Please do that.
Then the next thing you need to do is check your bank account to figure out how you gonna get this book.
As a matter of fact,
January 9th.
Before New Year's and January 9th, you can go to my website and you can pre-order the book right now.
Pre-order.
We come ready.
Right now, going across the screen, you see it. Go to that site, pre-order your book now.
I'll personally sign it and inscribe it just for you.
Just for you. So we appreciate the support in advance. So let's do it, man.
Yes, sir.
Here we are, the Fatherless Son. So a story of rejection and redemption. How did it really come about? And that's what a lot of people ask, how did you write the book?
Right. Honestly, I tell people this all the time, and I hate to be pastory, but I can't turn it off.
Right.
I believe I was wounded for the benefit of other people. And the reason that I wholeheartedly believe in that is because some people have committed suicide for less than what I had to live through every day. And as a young man, as a child, even when I started writing the book at 40 years old, I had been so broken. I had been so overwhelmed with rejection, functioning in a dysfunctional mind state. You know what I'm saying? Having to smile while broken on the inside. Mm-hmm. Everybody, I'm a popular guy, but in reality, I'm really a loner. And the reason for that is, I smile and I laugh and, I can socially interact, but I was literally walking around a shell of a man, broken, vulnerable, fragile, and depressed. And one day the Lord really spoke to me and told me it was time for me to heal. I'm helping everybody else heal. I'm serving the needs of other people, but at some point you got to heal, because Christianity is not about forgetting yourself completely like we think. The scripture says, here's how I know that you're my disciple, that you love your neighbor like you love yourself. And sometimes we can't properly love other people because we haven't learned how to properly love ourselves. Yeah. And so when I started writing this book, I really gained the courage to write it. And I mean that word, courage, because I'm very vulnerable in this book. I'm very transparent and I talk about it all, but I gained the courage to write it because I knew somebody needed my voice on this subject. And it was crazy. At 40 years old, man, you wouldn't have told me that I hadn't healed completely from all of the ills that came from fatherlessness. At 40 years old, I was a father. At 40 years old, I'm a pastor. I'm a spiritual father. At 40 years old, I'm all of these things, but I was still a broken little boy. I was carrying things around that I hadn't addressed,
hadn't dealt with.
And sometimes you have to articulate the things you've never spoken. And I had to talk about some things in this book that I've never spoken to anybody.
It amazed me that you just said that, because I literally was today writing, because I had just thought about an episode I can do, and I'm sitting there writing, I'm jotting things down, and I like to put nice little bullet points. And one of the things I said in it that is what we need to learn to do, especially as black men, is stop putting Band-Aids on scars that need to be healed.
Yeah.
You don't put a Band-Aid on a bullet wound.
Right.
You don't put a Band-Aid where somebody stabbed you.
Right.
You have to get it healed first, which means some surgery needs to be done.
Yeah.
Once that has taken place, if there's a scar still there, you put the Band-Aid on the scar.
Right.
The problem is we're putting Band-Aids on open wounds.
So what this book is for me is it was an opportunity for me to heal, because writing this book was therapeutic. But not only was it an opportunity for me to heal, now I have a scar. I took the Band-Aid off the scar.
Yeah.
And I wanted the world to see the scar, because there are other boys, girls, men, and women walking around with that same scar, and they don't know how to handle it.
Yeah.
And so this book actually speaks to the intricacies of overcoming a fatherless experience. You know, depression, rejection, you know, loneliness, the lack of validation, you know, resentment to men and authority. It caused me to question myself, not knowing who I was, because men and fathers offer identity. That's what we do for our children, you know. And so a lot of times young black men running around not knowing what they do, and they take their identity from the stuff that they see, like the videos and the entertainers and the dope boys and you name it. And it's because they haven't had somebody to download identity into them. So as a man, I was running around not even really understanding that I was being a shell of myself. So this book is medicine. It's medicine for the single mothers who have young children, whether they be boys or girls who don't. And I talk about in my book, my mama was Superwoman. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Single mothers, man, have been the backbone for our village. Yeah. Man, we can't, exactly. Yeah. And they need to be celebrated.
And it becomes a time where it has to be now that it has to switch.
Right.
That table has to turn.
Right.
Where the men need to become stronger. The men need to be, and I say that in the sense of we just got to be more responsible.
Right.
I think the women will always, and y'all can get mad if you want to. I think the women will always be the backbone, because
it's supposed to be.
God made them that way.
Yeah.
You know, when you even think about birth, He made them to go through the pain.
Right.
He made them to push out. He didn't make us like that. He made us a hard shell.
Right.
He made us to be hard but vulnerable.
Right.
But we get so caught up in the hard that we don't be vulnerable.
Yeah, you know.
And you got to be vulnerable to a certain extent, because your son needs to see you emotionally.
Yeah, and that's healthy.
Yeah, they need to see you cry. They need to see that you care and that you love.
That's
but
healthy.
A lot of times men don't cry.
That's not healthy.
That's not healthy.
That's a response to trauma.
I heard somebody say recently that they would never kiss their son in the mouth. And I thought about it almost to the point where you got a good point. But then I thought about the fact that as a kid, they don't know different. Mm-hmm. As a kid, as a 1-year-old, as an 8-month-old, don't know the difference from the fact that you're not showing the love. Because to them, as a baby, if you hug and kiss me, that means you love me.
Right.
But if you don't do it because you're thinking that's not what a man does, how can you show that love to the child? Because
you're offering the void.
They don't know. And we are the same way as we get older.
Yeah.
Because someone never showed it to us, we don't know. And that's what you was talking about.
We fumble and bumble in the dark until we find our way.
Until you find a way. And because a lot of the times that card wasn't inserted.
Right.
It's like we're like a computer.
Yeah.
And if you don't ever put that chip in to say word processor,
we've missed downloadable information.
Missed downloadable information. And I think that's key for black men. So tell me, because I ain't ready yet. And it's gonna be hard for you to pick, and this is on the spot. He didn't know I was gonna ask this question.
Okay.
What is a must read chapter out of this book?
Must read chapter.
And just in case you don't remember them by heart, I'm gonna let you cheat.
Man, listen, it's in me. Must read chapter. If I had to pick a chapter, and I don't want to pick one, but if I had to pick a chapter, it would be the last chapter. Because the last chapter is a summary of my redemption.
Okay.
You know, in the book I start first with perspective. You know, what is fatherhood from the eyes of a fatherless son? What is fatherhood from the eyes of a fathered son? And then what is fatherhood from the eyes of God? And oftentimes those are three completely different perspectives. Yeah. And the goal is to get a blend and a balance of all three perspectives. Then as I go into the book, it breaks down essentially into two primary components: my natural life, my spiritual life. I talk about how fatherlessness affected me negatively as a natural man, and then how it affected me positively as a natural man, and then both spiritual as well, how it affected me negatively and positively. And a lot of people don't realize that there can be positives. God knows how to get good at anything. Right. And there can be positives even in a bad situation. And so the reason why I would say the last chapter is because that's the chapter where I give a summation of my victory, where I talk about how ultimately the best thing that ever happened to me as a result of fatherlessness is it pushed me to depend on God.
Wow.
Because I couldn't depend on anything or anybody else with the same level of consistency as I could God. Mm-hmm. And that's where I found my strength. And I would not have really fallen on my face on the altar for the Lord had not I been rejected. Mm-hmm. And so rejection pushed me in the right direction.
Yeah.
And that if I can say this, excuse me, if I can say this to every woman, every man that may be worried about your children because of some of the negatives that they've had to experience, I just want to encourage you. If you do what you're supposed to do, you focus on what you can control. The reality is God know how to get good out of bad. Yeah. They ain't lost. Because I know my mama thought I was lost. She dropped me off at the police department. You hear me? She, get out. Boom. I said, Mama, these people don't like me. She said, get out. I don't like you either.
But that's true. And I say it's weird. I say a lot of little weird, I guess, like cliche type of things. That I don't like you, but I love you.
Yeah.
Or I'd rather you respect me than love me.
I know my mama didn't like me a whole lot of times.
Because it wasn't really that she didn't like you as a person.
I wasn't likable.
She didn't like what you stood for.
The way I was acting, I wasn't likable.
And she knew that Steve ain't Steve.
That ain't her son.
That was somebody else.
And that was her son grieving. Mm-hmm. And I didn't recognize, and she didn't recognize, the world doesn't oftentimes recognize that I was grieving and I was traumatized and I didn't know how to handle it. I didn't know how to respond to it. And sometimes our behavior is only the result of what's going on the inside. I'm going to say this, and please forgive me, but I got to get it out while I'm thinking about it. If you think about it, most of the stuff that we deal with as adults, whether you're a man or a woman, if you really, really do your homework, you'll realize that something happened when you were a child. And that is what's driving that thought or that behavior. Yeah. You know what I'm saying?
And it can go both ways.
It can be tied back to something that happened to you when you was a child.
Yeah.
And so if you don't deal with that, you won't ever change your current state.
Yeah. And I think a lot of times people only want to use that when it's good.
Yeah.
When, back when this happened, that made you great, and that made you do this, and I knew when you was little you was gonna be able to sing, or I knew you was gonna be able to dance, but what about the negative things that happen where you can see it and say, if we don't do something now, he'll end up dead or in jail, or he'll end up an angry father, or an angry husband,
or he'll repeat
that behavior,
the thing that he hated the most.
And a lot of times, and people say it, you sometimes become the thing that you're trying to run from
because you're responding to trauma in an unhealthy way.
But the thing is, where we keep talking about it, that's what's in you. Nothing was never else has been replaced. You have to replace the bad with the good. No difference from if we drinking our tea.
Right.
If it had a certain taste to it and I drink it, I ain't like that. The next time I make the tea, I'm not going to put that in there. Right. I'm going to put something else in it. So the problem is we grow up and something happened and we don't like it. So instead of replacing it with something else, we just try to avoid it. If I don't open it back up, then to us it doesn't exist. Right. But the whole time it's sitting in there. Exactly. It's molding. Exactly. It's growing inside of you because it never got taken out. Exactly. All we did was cover it up. So that's big. What you're saying is that the things that happened when you were younger needed to be dealt with. Yeah. Honestly needed to be talked about. Right. As we have to make this important. for black men is that we have to talk about certain things.
Right.
We have to talk about being abused.
Right.
We have to talk about being lonely. We have to talk about being rejected. And we don't talk about it. So then we grow up and we're playing catch up as grown men.
Yes, sir.
You see, so we can't, it's no more we can keep playing catch up.
Yes, sir.
That's why we have to continue to write books like this, while we have to continue to mentor, while we got to continue to give back. That's why we need the Marlon Shacklefords in the world.
Right.
And he molded the Steve Saucers,
Right.
the Terry Matthews, the Rondell Lanes.
Right.
Those type of guys now have to go back and grab some young men.
And duplicate yourself.
And duplicate
That's
yourself.
discipleship.
Yeah, and that's the way we have to do it. Because if not, and not saying that we did it the right way, it's just we did it late. We're late bloomers. But if I don't speak to the king in the little boy that's 10 and 12 years old, eventually I'm going to be speaking to the king and he's already a grown man. Speak the king into him when he has the ability to mature and the ability to speak life even on himself.
Right.
We wait until we 35, 40 years old. You know, we applaud Steve, but guess what Shaq gonna say? This book should have been written 10 years ago.
Right. And it should have been.
You know,
when I really wish when I was 10 years old, when I was 7 years old, when I was 13 or 15 or whatever, I wish I had that book, because the things that are being talked about, like how I developed, a desire for unhealthy family structure. You know, that was the result of that void that wasn't being filled. And so what I did was, my friends became my family. My hood became my village. And I wanted that validation that a father is supposed to give. I wanted that acceptance that a father is supposed to offer. And I was getting it, but I was getting it from other sources that weren't always beneficial for me, and being able to explain from the beginning and throughout the process how I ended up where I was at. That needs to be said to a boy, to a girl.
Yeah.
I talk about in my book, my prayer is that no young girl fall into the hands of the wrong man because she wasn't loved properly by the right man. And oftentimes that's what happens.
Yeah.
And so having those conversations, expressing those or exposing those jewels, I think is going to save a lot of lives, because experience, and I know a lot of people have said it, and you can cut this off if you want to, if you don't agree. Experience is not the best teacher. Experience is the most expensive teacher. It's the most abusive teacher.
Wow.
It's the teacher that don't forgive. But sometimes it's the only teacher a fool is willing to listen to. The best way to learn is to learn from somebody else's mistakes, because you're going to have to make your own mistakes anyway.
Yeah.
So you better off only making your own while learning from mine. Right. And that's what this book does.
Yes.
It gives a head start to that boy or that girl or that man or that woman who needs healing in this area.
So when my battle comes, that's my battle.
Yeah.
But the battle you went through should have taught me, don't go in that minefield.
Right. And if you find yourself in that minefield, this is how you get out of it. This is how you heal properly. All of us are going to deal with trauma. This is really a book on how to heal from trauma. You know what I'm saying? And we all need that. We all need, and sometimes, and I know mamas, and not just single mamas, but mamas in general, mamas worry about their babies. You know what I'm saying? Mamas worry about their babies. And the best thing that you can do as a mother, as a man, period, as a mentor in a child's life, the best thing you can do is interject them into community. Because that village has a voice. And even though the village might say the same thing you saying at home, mama, they listen to the village different than they listen to you. They hear it different. Yeah. And so now if they hear it from the village, they'll think about it when you say it. But if they aren't exposed to the voice of the village, and that's what this book is, this is the voice of the village. If they never exposed to the voice of the village, maybe they'll ignore what you say, until they get into trouble themselves.
Yeah, yeah.
You know what I mean? And so this book will speak to the hearts and the minds of so many young men, women, boys, and girls, just like it did me. And preferably, they can, gain some valuable insight and some healing from this book.
What's up, y'all? Y'all know I feel real good. Ooh, especially about Elder Steve Saucer, one of my favorite 302 spiritual sons. And one thing I love about Elder Steve Saucer is that he's a servant leader. And even before the pandemic hit, and they would talk about being essential workers, essential thinkers, and Black brothers, Black sisters involvement, we were already talking about the word essential. That when you're talking about essential, it's not about knowledge, but about character. And one of the things that young Steve understood is let your character speak louder than your words. Y'all hear me? Let your character speak louder than your words. And you might can't see these, but these are our first audio cassettes. That's Steve right there in the orange, where we were the national drama champions, right out of Dayton, Ohio, right out of the Montgomery County. I love Dayton, Ohio. And one of the things that we did was called Strive. And Strive was, we taught them that African Americans must strive. S, African Americans must start small. T, African Americans must think possibilities. R, African Americans must reach out a little further. I, African Americans must invest wisely. V, African Americans must visualize success. And E, African Americans must expand carefully. That was one of our skits, and we used to say you have to strive to stay on top of life because it's the bottom that's overcrowded. And so I'm so excited. Please get this book. This book is very powerful. And just understand that you are great. That you are great. And you don't have to be great to start, but you have to start to be great. And I'm going to leave it here. Greater is he and so thank you. Please support Elder Steve Saucer and his church. Thank you.
Okay, well, I appreciate that, man. Before I let you go, is there anything that you would like to say, whether it's on behalf of the book, whether it's to someone else, other than the fact that they need to get it? But I feel it that somebody needs to hear something. Don't know what it is. Sorry that we're right here with this. I guess it's the pastor in us. What is it that needs to be said to someone right now?
What I would say, twofold. Number one, I want to congratulate my family for doing everything you were able to do and some more. On my mama's side of the family, I don't know my daddy. I don't know nothing about him. I can't speak to that. On my mama's side of the family, I come from a good family. Yeah. Good people, solid people, God-fearing people. You know what I mean? And I want to congratulate you. And I want to reiterate, and I believe you know that this is how I feel, but I want to reiterate that my actions, my behaviors, and the way that I processed my experience is not a reflection on you. Because when I became vulnerable writing this book, it made my mama vulnerable. I feel like my mama is superwoman. But somebody reading this book might feel like, man, how could your son be feeling like that and you not know it? Yeah. But guess what? Don't get too high-minded, because your son, your daughter might be feeling like that too, and you don't know it. So I want to reiterate to my family that I appreciate you and I love you. Thank you for allowing me to be vulnerable with my own truth so that somebody else can be healed. And then the second thing that I'll say to the community, yeah, I believe you need to get this book. And I believe that if you do get the book, it'll usher in another component of healing. This book, you can be saved and you can go to heaven without it. Don't get it twisted. This book ain't going to save or get you in heaven. But what this book will do is add value to your life long as you're on earth. And I think that for that reason and for that reason alone, this book will help you raise your children. Not only will it help you raise your children, it'll help your children gain perspective so their healing can start early. But guess what? I don't want you to think the only people that need to be healed is these babies. We got a bunch of adults that are walking around broken, vulnerable, and fragile, and they have not dealt with the things that they've attempted to cover up. This book will help you to be vulnerable enough so that you can get the medicine that you need. And so that's what I'll say. I'll say, let this book be your medicine just like it was for me.
Yeah. So we'll end it just like that. Parents, don't hesitate to allow this to help your child. Adults, don't allow this to stop you from growing. Take the Band-Aid off. Get the medicine you need and be healed. I am Terry, the voice for the Pulse Talk Show. And remember, be the pulse for your city, the voice for the people, and the one to make a difference.
Shout out Restoration Church. I love y'all.
Y'all be blessed.